feel about rope and vessels? That makes it sound like we're doing something related to old school sailing ships. Y'all, dream of mine, practically lifelong at this point, is to take a trip in one of those ships. I don't know how it would happen, but I know they still exist and operate in some places, and hoo boy! I want to climb that rigging. I want to sit in that crow's nest. We've gotten off topic. Let me start over. How do you feel about rope and bowls?
Bowls, all type of bowls.
Bowls. This is already reminding me of the video where I made curtains and annoyed myself the whole time with my own pronunciation of curtains. Bowls. I have arrived upon, through seeing various stuff from other makers online, 4 different methods, or really like 3 different methods and one kind of cheater bonus method for making some sort of holding vessel out of some sort of cord or rope. And today I want to try them all out for your amusement and mine, for practicality and fun, for shits and giggles. Because you know, you store all of your random crap in bowls like these, and maybe we'll giggle about it at some point. Let's do it! Our first method is what I will lovingly call the cheater version. It's the bonus method. It's still totally valid, a great option, good stuff. It's just not actually like creating a vessel. It's just sort of altering an already existing one. Hence, cheater version. And yes, we are starting with the bonus method, which seems a little backwards, but it's the way it worked. For this method, I will need cord or rope of some kind. I need scissors. I need some kind of glue. I'm gonna go with hot glue for extra speedy easiness. And I need a pre-existing vessel. And this baby is the whole reason that we're doing this method. I wasn't gonna, because again, like, I was focusing on making bowls out of rope, but then I got this new plant for the guest room and I was looking at the bright white pot in that very dark navy blue room and it was just like, nah, I should fix that somehow. So we're gonna do that. With method 1, I'm gonna have to either get an extension cord or move to a different location. Love using this dining room table, but it is in the center of the room. I moved all the chairs over here the other day because I was cleaning up the floor from the last project, and then both Matt and I were like, the room looks so big and empty now without the chairs. So we just left them there. Now we have chair bench, I guess. Still got the price tag on and everything. I should probably take that off. I always leave the tags on because otherwise I forget the name of the plant. But then I don't know that I need to know the name of the plant. Really? Maybe a little? You've got some brown spots. Are you okay? Today is plant watering day, so I'll cover it in rope and then water it. This method doesn't need a whole lot of explanation. You basically take an existing vessel, whether that's a bowl, a pot, whatever it is, and you glue cord onto it, you know, starting from the bottom, coiling all the way up. You could do a slower drying glue depending on what surface you're putting it onto and how like secure and steady and not gonna fall apart in a day you want it to be. I think hot glue will be fine for this, especially since this isn't like a super hot glue gun, so that's pretty sturdy plastic anyway. The thing is, this is going to outgrow this pot if it doesn't die, and need to be transplanted at some point. But this is a nice, quick, easy fix to make the pot look better in the room for the time that it exists in that room. This is some of the cord that I got for the macrame project I made for that room, and then this one just didn't look right with the other ones. But it still matches one of the pillows on the bed, so I think this is a great way to bring in the color. Also, like the lamp shade made out of glass is kind of this color, so that's gonna look good. And this will be way easier for you if you do not do a vessel that already has stuff in it. I'm complicating matters for myself by trying to cover something full of plant. Wouldn't exactly recommend, but you know, it'll be fine. Let's do it. I think that might be the fastest project I've ever done in my adult life. About half an hour tops, and it looks so much better in this room now instead of being this blatant little of white. Now it's a coordinating color. Got good texture. Grand. Now we move on to the real methods, by which I just mean the methods that are actually creating a bowl from scratch. But before we do that, let's take a very quick break to talk about the sponsor of today's video. This video is sponsored by one of my favorites, Bombas. You'll know how picky my feet are about anything touching them. They're very sensitive in a way that's super annoying sometimes because they're also always cold. Wear socks, everyone says. Wear slippers. Wear something on your feet and they will be less cold. Well, it's finally happening, thanks to Bombas. Their socks are so soft and comfortable, I've finally been able to connect my feet with a sock they can stand. However, wearing socks around the house can still be a little for my brain, so I thought I'd try out a pair of their gripper slippers. First of all, adorable. Cherry tomato, you get it? My feet are most frequently turning to ice while I'm sitting at my computer editing videos for hours on end, so I've stashed these slippers right at hand, easy to pop on as soon as I sit down and before my toes turn purple. These things are lovely. Delightfully soft and smooth inside with some extra cushion under the sole and stay-put grips on the bottom so I won't crash and burn while running from my editing desk to the kitchen for snack breaks. And if you needed one more reason to check out Bombas for yourself, here's one. They have donated over 150 million items with their one purchase equals one donation program. They're also now shipping to over 200 countries, so feel good and do good with Bombas knowing that your purchase is doing some real good. New customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just click the link in the description and use code THESTITCHERY at checkout. Thank you to Bombas for keeping my tootsies warm and sponsoring this video. Now back to bowls. Welcome back. While you were hearing about the sponsor, I made a yeasted plum cake. Woo! It's like a time warp. Safe to say my yeast is working now that I bought some that isn't expired. Also, this smelled so freaking amazing while baking. Ooh! Ooh! It's delicious. Great way to use up some soft plums that I forgot to eat. There's a fly in here and its buzzing is driving me insane. But let's get on with method 2 here. So you will need some cord or rope or whatevs, scissors, as always, cling wrap of some kind, a pre-existing bowl, and some form of Mod Podge, or I'm pretty sure like Elmer's glue would work as well. So I'm using jute twine. Jute is a funny word, y'all. It's fairly small, so I'm gonna need a lot of this. I think this would work better, theoretically, in a larger twine or cord of some kind. Or it's more like I know it would work with that. I'm not sure if using really small stuff is going to be problematic. But I liked that it was green. And I'm only using jute because I think the original reel that I saw of this, which I'm so sorry, I don't remember who it was at this point. It was one of those like things that I swiped through and it stayed in my brain and the details are gone. But I remember that they were using jute, so I was like, I'ma just copy. Bowl-wise, I don't think it matters what kind of bowl you use in materials. It's probably just helpful to use one that doesn't have like a lip on the bottom that you would have to go over. Like some sort of smooth surface is gonna be best for this, logically. And then as far as glue, it seems like a thing that like Mod Podge is basically made for. I don't have a lot of personal knowledge of Mod Podge because I don't think I've ever used it before for anything. I was looking at the aisle to buy some the other day and there are so many different kinds now. So I got the one that is a hard coat. Seems kind of right for this. However, it does say that it takes 4 weeks to cure. Does that mean 4 weeks to fully dry? Because that's gonna be annoying. So I'm pretty sure you could just do this with good old Elmer's glue or whatever this is called when it's not the Elmer's brand. And this would actually like dry fast and I'm pretty sure do the same thing. But I'm gonna go ahead and use the Mod Podge just cause like I bought it. Oh, which means I need, actually I guess regardless, you also need like some sort of sponge or paintbrush to put the glue on. Because here's what we're gonna do. Also, another thing you need, you probably want some sort of surface coverage. Let me go get both of those things. I'm just gonna use a sheet of parchment paper. You just don't wanna make a mess on your table or whatever. So this time we are not covering the bowl, we're using it as a mold. You cover your vessel in cling wrap so that, you know, you don't get it all gluey. Ugh, good Lord. That's our mold. Now you cover it in your glue, like just put a layer over the whole thing. Another good reason, I guess, to use Mod Podge, or I think if you're using like the Elmer style, you might want to do small sections at a time because it's going to start drying, especially because I'm using a small one. It's going to take a hot second to like sit here and coil it all. I'm pretty sure the Mod Podge will be fine, but if I were using the Elmer's, I would do like just the top and then just add to it as I went. I think at least. This is not a tutorial, by the way, because I've never done any of these things before. They just all seem simple enough to me that I'm pretty sure I can nail it on the first go. I don't know though. We are always open to mistakes and failures. Don't look, I'm gonna cut this with my fabric scissors. Gasp. I'm assuming we all know what happens after this. We're gonna coil our cord, starting from the center, making a tight coil. Keep going until it's all the way down the sides of the bowl. And then we will put on a second layer of glue and let it dry. Let's get a close up. And turn off my mic so I can turn the AC back on. Hee hee. This is making me want to paper mache. Yeah, so I wouldn't highly recommend going with such a tiny cord for this method. Getting the initial spiral started was easier in the air than on the bowl itself, which is fine, but then it was really difficult to get the twine to lay flat right up next to itself with no gaps, but also without slipping under or over the part before it, you know? Like either I had holes or it was bunching up. Instead of waiting till the end to cover the whole thing in another layer of glue, I started generously adding layers as I went so it'll hold, even throwing a bit of Elmer's in there when things really could use that bit of tackiness. That's the thing with the slower curing glue like this Mod Podge. It's liquidy, not sticky. So it kind of dripped down the bowl and didn't really hold things in place right off the bat. I found it way easier to keep building up the bowl once I got to the sides, and I discovered it was very handy to drag the twine through the glue lower down on the bowl before pulling it into place. That helped a lot actually. Everything was quite gluey, sticky wet, which is why you're only getting one camera angle for this. Also why my camera died and I couldn't change the battery right away. Got the camera back on for the final wash of glue. Even though I'd been adding as I went, I thought an extra thick coat of Mod Podge over the whole thing couldn't hurt. I think that's gonna work okay. I don't really know. It might have like no structure to it. Why am I hovering this? I don't want to set it down anywhere. Everything seems sticky. We shall see, but because of that, I want to try it again with a thicker cord. I have more of the blue stuff that I just used on method 1. I've got quite a bit left actually. And this time I'm gonna try using the Elmer's. I might still have to do a layer of Mod Podge over the outside just because this did use quite a bit. Well, okay, it used like an inch. Oh, I burped while I said that. That was fun. We'll try doing all of it with Elmer's and see if that changes the final thing and if it makes the process more annoying because it's so sticky or less annoying. Let's do it all again. Goodness. This started out better. I was all like, okay, yeah, you just have to use a thicker cord. All problems solved. And then I got to the place where we curve over to the sides of the bowl and chaos ensued. Oh God. No. Ah. No. Oh my God. I added glue and undid a bunch and redid it and kind of thought I'd gotten it under control, but then when I ran out of cord, I realized the whole thing had slid upward off the bowl. It wasn't even sitting on it anymore. Oh God, no. Chaos again. Ah, shit. Oh dear, oh no. Round 3, I dumped a whole lot of Mod Podge on there, used my skewer to hold it down, tried not to pull too tight, and it kinda mostly worked. These have been drying overnight. I actually put them outside for the bulk of the day because I figured heat was sure to help. Right? This one's pretty rock hard. You hear that? Rock hard. Although I can see some holes in it. This one, kind of rock hard, except right in the center, which I did dump an awful lot of glue there. You can see that it's still a slightly different color and it looks a little mushy, or it feels a little mushy. I feel like I shouldn't take this one off yet, but let's see how this one goes. Okay, I'm checking my real bowl first. Are you okay? Ta-da! Y'all, it worked. I mean, again, because it's such thin cord, it's a pretty thin bowl, you know? But it does feel structurally sound, as in it's not just gonna collapse on itself with the weight of gravity. I think you could crush it pretty easily if you accidentally sat on it. There are definitely holes and gaps in various places, so we knew it wouldn't be a watertight bowl, but it's like definitely not a watertight bowl. Does it sit? Yes, it does. Low bar. Does the bowl sit? Oh, that's not good. Okay, yeah, so I don't think this was a setting thing necessarily. It's a little squishy still. I can tell that the center needs to set more, but like this part's pretty rock hard, so that just didn't get enough glue to actually hold it together. I think I could go in and fix that with another form of glue. I mean, I could fix it with Elmer's. Just put a little bit on all of these openings, stick it together, let it sit. It'll dry like everything else. I mean, this was mostly Elmer's anyway. But yeah, you can definitely see in the center that it's still a slightly different color and it needs to set longer. And that is probably because the cord is thicker and also a more absorbent material. And also I dumped a lot more glue on it. So all in all, it had a lot more drying to do. But my overall takeaway here is that if you see a really like aesthetic video of somebody making one of these, that video is probably highly produced. Not that everyone is going to be as messy or as chaotic as I am, but y'all, like, come on. It's a messy process. Now we get on to the sewing. This is probably a method that you have heard of or seen or maybe even tried yourself. I think for people who already have a sewing machine, it's fairly well known. For this method, you will need rope or cord of some kind, probably a little thicker, scissors, a sewing machine with, of course, needle and thread, and optionally, you could use some fabric scraps, bias binding, lace, or even like a fabric yarn like this. And I was totally just gonna wing it on this based on the various times I've seen, you know, clips of this, snippets of this. We've all seen people do this style, but I thought, let me actually find a good tutorial video so that I can link it in the description for you guys, because again, this is not a tutorial. This is just me exploring. So there's a great one from Pattern Scout that I've linked in the description. I have this rope right here. I was trying to kind of mostly use what I already had in stock for this project. I don't remember what this is or why I bought it at this point. No, wait. I think I bought it when I was testing macrame on like a bunch of different materials. Why did I buy this much? It came from the hardware store. Judging from the feel of it, I doubt that it's cotton rope. It feels like it's not. But for this, you do want something fairly thick, because if it's too small of a cord, you're gonna have a lot of trouble sewing it together. So I do have some other stuff that I could try. I have one of my more typical macrame cords, and like, I think that would be really hard to sew together because it's so thin. And then I also have some of this stuff. I forget what it's called, but I don't think is really right for this. So we're gonna hope that this works. Was my takeaway there. I might need to untangle it. I don't know where the end is. I've never tried this before, but it seems really simple. I don't anticipate running into any trouble. You're essentially just zigzag stitching cord together to make a vessel, you know, depending on how big you want it and how vertical you want the sides. You start to tilt your piece up as you're sewing it. And then the reason I said you could optionally use a bunch of this stuff is that you can wrap the cord as you're going, just to give it a different look. I might make one of these, I might have a blast and make a bunch. Let's just give it a try and I'll tell you more as I go. My cord was a little explosive on the cut end, so I did a whole bunch of back and forth stitching on that initial coil just to hold in any loose fluffies. My machine handled this cord really well, no issues even when going at a decently fast speed. And after a moment, I got into the coordination of it all and could sew for a long time without pausing. Delightful. Nice. Right when I was going to start curving the bowl upward, I realized I was sewing on the wrong side for that, so I went ahead and backstitched to pause for a moment and flip it over. Really cool texture here. By the way, you can also make like placemats and stuff with this. I think you could do a bag of some kind too. I immediately went for as straight up of an angle as I could get, and then I thought my bobbin thread broke, but it had actually just run out, so yeah, still no machine issues. Here's a camera angle you don't see often. Eventually, I reached the massive tangle in my cord and figured that it was a good time to start adding some color once I untangled it. I'm going to use these lace trim binding things that I got from Remainders at some point because I've never found any other reason to utilize them. Wrapping your cord does slow things down a bit, but that's okay. I'm loving the look. Oh, ran out of bobbin thread again. This type of bowl making devours thread, y'all. To end the rope, I used the method shown in Pattern Scout's video of looping it back on itself, and eep, look how good this turned out. I'm having so much freaking fun, seriously. It's fairly quick, it's satisfying, it's simple, it turns out something really cool. I'ma immediately do it again. Round 2! Y'all, I cannot even express how satisfying I find this process. The pedal to the metal consistency, only pausing when my cord gets caught in my chair wheel. switching to the sides whenever the spirit moves me, the weird clacking noise of my thread alerting me right away when my bobbin runs out. This is nice. I cut a bunch of thin strips from my scrap fabric. This is a knit material so it won't fray on the edges, and also changed my thread to black so it will match better, and then we're back at it. I stretched the fabric a little as I wrapped it, just to cut down on the chunkiness as much as possible, because I think normally you'd do this with a much thinner material, but yeah. I had thread issues for the first time. Was that because of the extra bulk, or because my machine has a vendetta against this black thread? Difficult to say. I just forced myself to slow down a lot, sometimes unsuccessfully. Y'all, genuinely, that was so much fun. I really enjoyed making these. Also, every time I finish one, I have to put it on my head. Anybody else have that? You make a bowl, you gotta wear it as a hat. I love this one. I love the fabric I used from my rainbow stripey dress and the way that it came together on the top of this. And I did the little kind of slit handles on the side. I probably should have made more of a gap so you could really get your hands in there better, but whatever, it was my first try. I'm not sure how to get really straight up and down sides. This one's more straight up and down than this one was. I don't know, it might have to do with the shape of your sewing machine and how far the presser foot is out or in. Because, on this I was tilting it as far as I could and it still ended up sloped sides, which is fine. That's what a bowl looks like. I like it. I'm just interested in how to get a kind of straight-sided vessel. These are two really fun examples though. This was just really fun. Highly recommend. If you're already a sewist, you already have a machine, you basically already have everything you need except some rope or cord. So go get yourself some. Make yourself some bowls, some baskets, holding vessels. We have one more method to try though, and I'm really excited for it. So, let's go. Did I try this one on as a hat? Fashion. Our last method is the one that actually incited this whole thing. I saw one video of it and I was like, ooh, I want to make rope bowls now. Coiling. For this, you will need a larger rope and a smaller rope in comparison to each other. Optionally, you could also use yarn or fabric scraps or fabric yarn. You will also need scissors and a needle that is big enough to fit your smaller yarn, rope, fabric, whatever it is. So I thought this would kind of be an ideal time to use this, I think it's called braided cord. I genuinely don't know. Whatever this stuff is that I got at one of the creative reuse stores that I visited, I actually got some more that's slightly smaller at Quilting for Community, I think. I am lightly afraid that this is afraid. I like how I use the word afraid in such unnecessary places. I am lightly concerned that this will be too thick, so I do also have some leftover of the rope that I was using in the sewing method. Was that the last one we just did? It's been a few days. Shh, don't tell. And then I got some paracord for some reason. Actually, yeah, it was the same as when I bought this. It was for testing out macrame with a bunch of different stuff. And then yeah, using fabric scraps for this would be really fun. But because I accidentally bought this fabric yarn that was totally the wrong color and I didn't want to use, I figured this is a good chance to use it. I might try to make 2 of these to test out like different sizes and different stuff. Again, on this one, I watched a tutorial, so I will link that in the description for anyone who wants it. I believe it was by Macrame by Cray. Covered all the good stuff. Let's give it a shot, shall we? I don't think I should start with this one because I think doing it so big as my first try might be a problem. Like, it's harder to coil the beginning when your rope is that big because you are adding a whole other layer of rope around this one. So should I start with the smallest one? I think yes, I'm gonna start with this one and the paracord, which I have so much of. Why did I buy so much of it just to test out some macrame? The interesting thing here is that you do have to pre-cut a length of this stuff, like actually cut it off so you can thread it through the needle, and then just keep cutting new pieces and adding them in whenever you run out. And I think you could potentially also use a crochet hook for this if you don't have or you can't find a needle with like a giant eye like this. I think that would be a little bit slower because every time you'd have to like poke it through and catch the thing and draw it through. But a crochet hook or like a latch hook kind of thing, I think could work. Starting is the trixiest part here. You really do need some dexterous fingers. The goal is to completely cover your inner cord with the outer cord, so it doesn't matter what color that is because it shouldn't show. But I'm not gonna be super picky about it on this one. I'm more interested in just getting into the rhythm and getting the technique down. And you do indeed get into a rhythm pretty fast, which is why I couldn't be bothered to change the camera angle for the first half hour. I was in the zone. Eventually you can kind of pause anytime you've drawn the cord through the previous ring though, because the tension holds it there. You definitely spend a lot of time simply untwisting your cord. Not just in this method actually, that's been a constant with all the methods. Turns out if you want to twist a rope into a spiral of some kind, you'll have to commit a part of the process to untwisting your leftover rope. I think the important thing for coiling is figuring out what handhold works best for you. Some people may prefer to do it on a table like this, but as soon as I stopped filming, I automatically moved it into my lap because I often use my body as a helpful tool in crafts like this. Bracing against your torso is very handy. I really like how few supplies this method requires too. I was able to easily take the whole thing outside and keep working in the somewhat peaceful morning air. Someone's chopping down a tree, hence somewhat peaceful. Unfortunately, this didn't last long, because at this time of year, the mosquitoes start feasting rather early. But before we go back inside, totally unrelated, look at my butternut squash plants. I roasted a squash for dinner, tossed the seeds in this pot, and oh my goodness, they are thriving and bringing me so much joy. Back to coiling, keep in mind that you go through way more of the outer cord than the inner one. You will need a lot of it. Good thing I randomly bought so much paracord because I used up all the loose stuff before I even started curving the walls upward. I got close to the end of the big cord but ended up running out of the paracord first, which means this size of bowl took almost 150 feet of outer cord to create. Also, my hands are sore just from this one, so I'ma pause for today and try the second one in the morning. Rather dark and cozy out the next morning, but my fingers are limbered up, if still a little sore, and we're going for it with the fabric yarn and the smaller of the 2 cords. I actually found this method easier, both on the hands and, in general. The flat fabric yarn covers ground faster, but also doesn't add bulk, so it's way less finicky trying to get that initial coil started. I finished it in 5 minutes, even with the thicker base cord. I also didn't have to untwist the yarn as often as I did with the paracord on the last one, so the process was just overall a little faster. Highly recommend going the fabric route, whether a pre-made yarn like this or just your scraps, if your hands tend to get tired quickly, or you're using a thicker base rope like this. It was really easy to get the walls straight up and down on this one too, and when I got towards the end of that base rope, I added handles on either side by just wrapping a section without attaching it to the previous row, then poofing it out a little before securing the end. That was so much fun. This one did not hurt my hand at all. Like, I found this very easy to complete. I think overall it was probably just a little bit faster. Like, you're still having to wrap just as much. But yeah, I think there's something in like holding on to the actual cord rather than a flat material, or maybe like, I don't know, there was something different in this because this really made my hands hurt. And this, even though I made it right after making this or the next morning, no hand soreness at all from this one. I would love to do this again with my actual fabric scraps with all the different colors. I'll save that for like the next time I do a scrap busting video of some kind. I think this would be a fun little exploration for that, and I'd love to try it even bigger. Anyway though, all around, like, every single one of these was just fun. It was a fun exploration. Oh, I'm forgetting the cheater method. Well, I'm not forgetting it. I just don't want to go get it. You remember. These are definitely the most like structurally sound, as in they're not at all floppy, but they do also feel weaker and more likely to fall apart. Whereas these are really like squishable, you know, which might be great, you know, if you need to put this into a small thing to pack it for some reason, super easy for that. And then they just pop back out to their actual shape. So yeah, not as structural on these, but they're not gonna fall apart. They feel super sturdy, I guess. And then these are like a halfway in between sort of thing. They're actually more structural than I thought. They're pretty solid, straight up and down. They definitely don't feel like they're gonna fall apart at all, but they are just like a little bit squishable, you know? You can fairly easily still squish them around and then pop them back out, so they're sort of the middle level of this. I have a feeling a bunch of you have done this style, and I do think this one and this one. These are my two favorites. I love how the striped fabric ended up on this one, and then I love the shape that I got out of this one. It's so fun. Yeah, I don't know. This was just, I do know. This was a really fun exploration. I'm glad I tried it, and now I got a bunch of baskets, bowls, vessels. Now I'm thinking about ships again. Yeah. And good snort. Oh, liquidy. Liquidy? Is that even a word? We're all a little collapsy sometimes. Whereas these are pretty floppy and squishable. Ew, there's a dead fly on it. Did you do a good poop? You didn't shake your booty. Oh. You can't fart as you do it. My mic is gonna die. Good timing.